Today I'll walk you through step by step how to make the Aziza tunic complete with balloon sleeves, perfect for any occasion. Let's get into it. Okay, you'll need fabric for the top, fuse, fabric scissors, and all the pattern pieces for the Aziza tunic. I'm cutting this out in a cotton fabric. This is CMC exclusive Cover Me Chic fabric that we have available in our Spoonflower shop. The link is below. So here we're just cutting out the front and the back. The front is on the fold, and make sure to cut all your notches. And the back, the same thing. Make sure you cut all your notches. On the front, I cut the notch on the center front neck just to add the collar, and I'll show you that later on in the video. Because the sleeve is so wide, I have to refold the fabric in the length position so that I can cut out the balloon sleeve. It's a very wide sleeve, so I couldn't cut it on the fold like I did the other ones. So I'm cutting the sleeve, the cuff, and the collar this way. For the Ballon fuse, I only have to cut one collar, so that's what I'm doing here. Now I'm taking the collar over to the ironing board to press the fuse. I like to use some fabric just so that it doesn't get onto my iron. Now I'm going to sew the top of the collar, and then I'm going to do an understitch on the right side of the fabric so that it lays flat. So you push the seam allowance to the wrong side of the collar, the lining side of the collar, and then you sew about 1/8 of an inch on the wrong side of the collar, parallel to the seam. This is done so that when you fold the seam, it lays flat, and it's a very professional finish. Now we have to sew both ends of the collar. I like to clip the seam allowance to alleviate some of the bulk when you turn it over. So now we have the front of the Aziza tunic, and we're going to gather the neckline. We're going to sew between the notches, 1/4 inch first, and then 1/2 inch, and then we're going to gather. If you have any questions, please ask in the comments, and if you're liking this video, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to be notified when we post a new video. So now we move to the back with right sides together. We're going to sew the back seam up until the notch of the opening at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Make sure to finish the edges. I use a serger here, but you can use anything that you like. Now we're going to sew the shoulder seams at 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to take it over to the serger to finish those edges as well. I like to press my seams and my finished pieces as I'm going because it gives you a professional finish. So I'm going to press the collar, shoulder seams, and back seam. After pressing, I'm going to sew 1/4 inch from the edge for the back opening. So now I'm going to attach the collar to the front. I'm matching the front notch. I'm going to match the front notch on the collar and the front notch on the front piece. Then we're going to match the front notches all around. Here I'm lining up the back collar with the back seam and pinning everything. Here I'm lining up the back collar notch with the back seam, and you ease in the rest of the front and match all of the notches from the collar and the front piece. Now that everything is pinned, you sew 1/2 inch from the edge, the 1/2 inch seam allowance. clean clean up any loose threads that you see on the front side, and then you take it over to the iron and press. Now we fold the collar lining to meet the seam and then pin, and then we top stitch. I like to top stitch on the face side of the fabric about a 1/16 inch away from the seam, just to give it a clean finish that you see what you're doing. But just turn it over occasionally to make sure you're catching the collar on the other side. Here I changed the presser foot to a 1/4 of an inch hem foot. You can get this for your home machine as well. This is for a factory machine, but I'll put a link below to something for your home machine that would do the same job. So just be careful going around the corners and over the seam, but it just gives it a really nice, clean, professional finish. We just sewed the back hem, so now we're going to sew the front hem. The same process, just fold it twice, 1/4 of an inch, and then use the hem foot to go around the bottom. Now we're going to take it over to the table and pin the sleeves. Just make sure you match all notches. The front notch is 1, the back notch is 2, and there's also a notch for the shoulder seam. Just put everything together, pin everything together.
You gonna stare forever? Do you wanna get to know me? Get your confidence up, we only got tonight.
Now we take it over to the sewing machine to sew that a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I usually pin everything at my machine, but I'm just pinning it here so that you can see. I match the sleeve seam and matching the edges of everything to sew the sleeve and the side seam. Now I'm sewing the side seam and the sleeve seam. Then I'm gonna take it over to the serger to finish the edges. Both sides. Now it's time to gather the bottom of the sleeve. So make sure that you put your machine on the widest stitch and sew a 1/4 inch from the edge and then a 1/2 inch from the edge into 2 rows of stitching. And then you're gonna pull together. I like to put a pin where the notch is so I won't lose it when it's gathered. Now we're going to sew the cuff together and we're going to leave space so that we can actually put in the elastic. So we're going to sew one side and then leave about 1.5 inch space for the elastic to come through. You fold and press. Now we're going to pin the cuff to the sleeve, matching the seam and the notches. And just ease the sleeve onto the cuff. Ease the gathers. So either you have to let the gathers out or you might have to gather a little bit more, just so that everything fits. Then you pin and then you sew at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. When sewing, make sure the elastic opening is on the inside of the cuff. Once you turn it over, you may have to take some of the thread out that you see of the gathered stitch. Now I took it over to the serger and finished the edges. Now I'm going to add the elastic. Now I'm going to sew that a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And just go over it a few times so that it's sturdy.
The world is full of fighting, ignorance and greed, but right here on the dance floor, the rhythm's all you
The elastic is
need.
in, you turn it around and you blind stitch, close the opening. Now I take everything over to the ironing board and I press all of the seams. Now to add the back closure, I'm using a hook and eye, but you can also do buttonholes. Now I'm taking a straight side on the left side of the garment and match it up to the back seam, and the hook side on the right side. Now we have to hand sew it. Just be careful on the right side that you don't see the thread. Here I'm just using a single thread, knotting the end, and then I'm going to whip stitch it in place. Left side first. This one, it doesn't matter because it's going to be on the inside of the garment. Just make sure it's straight and lines up with the back seam. Clip all the edges or threads, and then you do the same thing to the right side. But just make sure, just be careful so that you can't see the stitching on the right side of the garment. And you're all done. If you have any questions, please ask in the comment section. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.